So it's officially review time again, and the game I'm reviewing today is ASKA, which is what's the best way I can describe this? It's like a Viking survival game, city building survival game, sim building survival game. Yeah, manage a colony, I think that's what I'm trying to say. But before getting into this review, there's one thing I need to make extremely clear, or I need to say for legal purposes, and it's that I actually received a key for this game from keymailer.com. First off, I need to give a ginormous thank you to Thunderful Publishing and Sailor Studios for the key for this game. I appreciate it a hell of a lot. And then again, I mentioned this before, but for legal reasons, I need to mention this one part, being even though I did receive this product for free and I did receive a review copy for this game, it will not impact my review in any way, shape, or form. I just need to make that abundantly clear for many illegal reasons and things like that. But anyways, without further ado, let's get straight on to this review. So anyways, going to the first thing I really loved about this game being that it's generally hard. Yeah. It's a little bit hard for me to like emphasize past this point, but I just found it to be generally hard. You know what I mean? Like you'd be kind of shocked at how many survival games are like, emphasis, I've played a lot of survival games and you'd be pleasantly shocked at how many survival games just aren't really that hard. So for me, this game being generally hard was kind of a change of pace. You know what I mean? I didn't have to like go into the difficulty settings and tweak little tiny things just to make it that much harder. I didn't have to do that. It was just generally kind of hard off the bat, which I liked. That was good. Going into the second thing I really liked about the game, kind of being similar to the first thing, being the winters for this game are like generally actually hard. I love that about this game. Like, there are so many games, right? There's so many survival games that, like, build winter up to be, like, this, like, immensely hard thing, and then it ends up being, like, extremely anticlimactic. So that's one of the things that I absolutely adored about this game, being the winters are generally really hard. I love that. You know, it's not like the final season of Game of Thrones where it's, like, winter's coming and they hype it up for an entire season and then just, like, bam, it's, like, the worst shit of all time. You know what I mean? Like, it's generally hard winter. I love that about this game. It's awesome. Then going to the second thing the third thing I really liked about this game, kind of being two separate things, but we'll kind of roll with it, being the building of the game and the building in the game, I think I got that out right, and the colony management of this game. Because if you didn't know, this game isn't just a survival game like 7 Days to Die or something like that. No, it's actually a city building survival game. It's a colony management survival game. So you can have villages and you got to manage them and they can do things for you, things like that. So it's not just your typical run-of-the-mill survival game where like you survive and only you survive and you build up your base and things like that. No, it's a colony management survival game. So it's got a little bit more detail in that sort of circumstance. But yeah, emphasis on both those things. The reason why I love the colony management side of the game was very simple, and it's mostly because one thing I find with a lot of these colony management sort of games is they tend to be way too overcomplicated. If that kind of makes sense? The colony management side of things just end up being way too complicated and really annoying, and it just ends up pissing me off in the long run. So yeah, this game, its colony management is nice and simple and pretty easy to wrap your head around, which I loved about this game. I loved that the colony management was just simple and easy to wrap your head around. So that's one of the things I loved about the game, being its colony management. And then obviously the other thing I really loved about the game being the building. I love the building for this game. And I think my main reason for that is because the building is ultimately, even though it's a little bit more complicated than what the colony management is of the game, the building also on its own is very in-depth, it's very detailed, and then on top of that, the actual buildings themselves are very aesthetically pleasing and just nice to look at. I love the designs of each building, they're just nice. That's really all I have to do. That's really all I have to say about the building itself, but I really love the building of this game. It was just nice and satisfying, it was detailed, and there was depth to it. And I like that about this game. So yeah, that's the third thing I really liked about the game, being the building and the colony management of the game, the colony management side of the game. Hopefully I got that part out considerably well. Then going to the next thing, or the final thing I really loved about this game, being a really small thing, but a really simple thing, but a thing that it really means a lot to me, if that makes sense. Being building walls in this game is actually kind of like necessary. And I mentioned this before, this is a really small and really simple thing, but it's actually something that means a lot to me. And the reason why it means a lot to me is because I mentioned this before earlier in this review, being I've played a lot of survival games, like a disturbing amount of survival games. And one thing that's always pissed me off about a majority of those survival games, whether they're great survival games or horrible survival games, is that the building in the game the wall, like building walls is usually not very necessary. Sorry, I stuttered a lot there. I don't really know why I stuttered so much there, but you know, it's not important. Yeah, but that's one of the things that's always really pissed me off about a lot of survival games, being building walls are never necessary. They're either not in the game at all or just an aesthetic thing. So this game actually having walls that are like necessary to build, that you have to build and are actually kind of like necessary, I like. It's not just an aesthetic choice, or they don't just cut them from the game completely. Building walls is actually necessary. That's one of the things that I loved about this game. And again, I know that's like a really simple and stupid thing to love about a game, but I mean it. I love it, and that's one of the things I loved about the game. I can't change that. I just like that walls are actually necessary. And again, I'll mention this once and just one more time. I know it's one of those really stupid and small things that isn't really that important, but it's just one of those things that I'm just so sick of in survival games, where it's like, I'll get in there and walls just aren't necessary. You know what I mean? You don't need to have walls. They're either not in the game at all, or again, the other thing I mentioned being they're more of an aesthetic choice than an actual, like, actually having them down or having them in the game point. If that makes sense. Hopefully I got that out considerably well. But yeah, that's just one of the things I loved about this game, and it means a lot to me that walls are actually necessary in this game. Thank you, for the love of God. Yeah, sorry, I spent way too much time on that subject. I really need to complain about that for a second, because it's one of those really small nitpicky things that just pisses me off about most survival games. And then anyways, now that we've gotten the things that I really loved about the game out of the way, let's go into the things that I really didn't like about the game, because while I did really love this game, there was a lot of things I really didn't like about this game. And those things mostly being, thing number one, being that the combat in the game really wasn't very good. I really didn't like the combat of this game. I don't know why. I think it mostly just comes down to how stiff it was. Ultimately, like, the combat in this game was just very stiff and very clunky, and I really didn't like that about this game. So yeah, that's one of the things I really didn't like about the game. And the first thing I really didn't like about the game being that the combat wasn't very good, and it just felt very clunky and not very satisfying, not very movable, if that makes sense. So yeah, that's the first thing I really didn't like about the game, being the combat was just really stiff and really clunky. Then go to the next thing I really didn't like about the game, being the traversal. The traversal. Sorry, I don't know why I couldn't say traversal very well then. Yeah. So the second thing I really didn't like about the game being the traversal. The traversal in this game is not good. So there's no real way to get around the map faster. The only way to get around this map considerably fast is, well, there's actually no other way to get around this game to get around this map considerably fast, and I actually mean that too. There's literally no way. The only way to get around this map is by walking. That's literally it. There's no other way to get around this map. And don't get me wrong, the maps in this game aren't very big, so it's not too much of a problem. But, you know, one thing this game does have, and I actually needed to add this at the beginning, but I kind of forgot, is that you can have multiple outposts in this game. And actually, one of the big designs of this game is that you're kind of, to a certain extent, meant to have multiple outposts in this game. So you can have your main base, and then you can have other smaller bases between those. It's one of those things that's built into the game, which isn't 100% necessary to have in the game, but is semi-important to a certain extent. So I feel like having a system in place for multiple outposts, but then have the traversal in the game, or the traversal in the game, just be really bad, doesn't make much sense. So the traversal's really bad, but you have an outpost system in the game. That doesn't make much sense to me. I'm sorry, it just really doesn't. You know what I mean? It just, yeah, I feel like if you're going to put such a large emphasis on having multiple outposts in this game, or, you know, yeah, or having like a multiple outpost system, I feel like you need to make the traversal just that tiny bit better. You know what I mean? Like, hey, you know what would be a really cool idea? Maybe this would be a little bit too complicated or a little bit too ambitious, but hey, maybe add like horses to the game, horse and carriage. That'd be really fucking cool. That'd be a great way to move large amounts of resources between outposts and different outposts. I think that would be actually awesome if they added horses to the game, and then you could have, again, carts. It would make it really easy to traverse around the map. It would make it so traversal's kind of fixed. You can get around the map a lot faster. And then also you could probably have, again, I mentioned this before, but you could have like a cart in the game that your horse can wheel around so you can move around large amounts of resources. And another thing that would be really cool about a horse and cart is you'd be able to grab a large amount of resources, put them on the back of your cart, jump on your horse, and then ride to a spot that you want to build a new outpost in, and then have all the set materials to actually build a new outpost. So yeah, that's actually a really good idea. And I actually thought of that literally on the spot as of me recording this. So yeah, that came completely off the top of my head. I've thought of that right here. So yeah, I think they should add horses to the game, to be honest with y'all, and a horse and cart. I'm pretty sure carts are already in the game. I'm pretty sure carts are already in the game, but adding horses to the game would be awesome. It would mean you could move around the map a lot faster, and you could go from outpost to outpost without having to walk, which again, walking is really, really fucking slow. So yeah, that's the second thing I really didn't like about the game, being the traversal is really, really bad in the game. It's not good. You know, if the only way to get around your map is walking, and the walking isn't very fast, it's a kind of problem. So yeah, traversal, really bad, didn't really like it. And sorry, I spent way more time on that subject than what I would have liked to have, but I can be a little bit iffy on actually getting things out of my mouth and speaking, because I'm not that good at speaking. But hey, we live and we learn. That's why I'm doing this channel, so I become a better speaker. But yeah, anyways, going into the third thing I really loved about really didn't like about this game. I don't know why. Yeah, I'm just getting confused. It's 2 a.m. I'm kind of tired, but that's off topic. Sorry, I'm getting a little off topic, getting a little personal. Don't want to get personal. Getting personal is the worst thing you can do with a YouTube channel. So yeah, third thing I really loved about this, didn't like about this game. Fuck, I keep doing that. I'm going to keep this all in because I find it quite funny. Maybe you guys don't find it entertaining, but I find it mighty entertaining. I think it adds a lot of personality to me. Yeah, that was such an ignorant huff. Not important. Okay, going into the third thing I really didn't like about this game, being this kind of goes into the last thing, but the exploration of this game is really repetitive, kind of boring, and not very rewarding. That's one thing I didn't like about this game, being, yeah, the exploration isn't really that good. I don't really know how I can emphasize past this point, but I guess it mostly comes down to this. There's only around 5 different landmarks in this game that you can explore. One of those being like a wolf's den, the other one being like there's like 3 Great Lakes in this game and just things like that. But yeah, I'm pretty sure there's only around 5 or 6 different landmarks throughout this entire game, or the entire map, which isn't really that great for exploration, because after you've seen these 5 landmarks, it's like, hey, hi, so it's editing me. I need to emphasize something really important. Yeah, and I didn't really emphasize this part very well, but what I pretty much meant was emphasizing there's more than 5 landmarks in this game. It's just there's only 5 landmark types, if that kind of makes sense. So in total, I'm pretty sure there's around like 30 or 35 different landmarks, but a lot of them are just copy and pastes of one another, if that kind of makes sense. So there's only around 5 different original landmarks. So I just kind of wanted to emphasize that a little bit because I don't explain it very well here. So yeah, just wanted to make that clear. I'm going to let y'all get back to the review. That's kind of it for the world. You know what I mean? Like, you've pretty much explored everything there is to explore. You've pretty much seen everything there is to see in this world. And it's really not that great. That's kind of a problem for me. I'm not really a big fan of that. So yeah, that's one thing I really didn't like about the game, was the exploration was just really repetitive and really boring. And maybe the reason why it was so boring wasn't just because there was only like 6 different landmark types, but it might have also been just because, again, as what I mentioned before, but the traversal is just really bad in the game. So that's maybe why it's so boring. But yeah, it's just exploration, repetitive and boring. And I mentioned this before, but it's not very rewarding either. It's not really that rewarding exploring the map at all. You know what I mean? It's slow and boring and repetitive, you know, and then again, once you actually get to one of these like landmark areas, you don't really get anything for doing the actual landmark itself. You know, the only benefit, there's like one landmark which is actually kind of beneficial to like complete and to kill the enemies at, but outside of that, all the other landmarks, they're not really, like, you don't really get anything from like beating them. there's not really any like reward for actually beating any of the landmarks in this game. So yeah, that's the third thing I really didn't like about this game, being the exploration was just really repetitive, really boring, and just overall not that really rewarding. So yeah, that's the third thing I really didn't like about this game. And then the final thing that I didn't really like about this game, which is probably a little bit of an iffy one, but it's that in the beginning, the game can be very overwhelming. It's a little bit hard to like emphasize past that point, but I think the best way I can emphasize past that point is that it's got a very steep learning curve. And I don't think this is particularly a thing that I didn't like about this game, and it's not really a thing that the devs can change, but it's just something I just wasn't a big fan of, was that the game had a really, really steep learning curve. But I guess when you've got a game that's this detailed and really this good, or not really this good, but when you got a game that's this detailed and has this much in it, and just has this much, there's going to be a steep learning curve. So I think I'm just going to keep it there. I think one of the things I didn't like about this game was mostly just it can be very overwhelming in the beginning, and I can see it turning off a lot of new players, and I think that's why I added it into the things that I didn't like, being that it can just be so overwhelming that for a new player, it may turn them off from this game. You know what I mean? I like a challenge and I like a steep learning curve, but ultimately there's going to be a lot of people who play survival games that, you know, maybe they do love a steep challenge, you know what I mean? A lot of people who do play survival games, they do love steep challenges, you know what I mean? But it being so overwhelming in the beginning, I can just see it turning off so many new players from this ultimately really great game. And that's something I haven't really emphasized enough, is that this game is actually really good. Outside of the world being a little bit repetitive and boring, you know, outside the combat being really chunky and not that great, outside of the traversal being, in my opinion, absolute dog shit, you know what I mean? It's that this game is actually really good. Outside of those three things I really didn't like about the game, this game is great. You know what I mean? Like, the building is the best I've seen in almost any survival game. It's the most detailed I've seen in any survival game I've played ever. You know what I mean? And it's actually, again, I'll say this once, I'll say it again, it's actually hard. it's a hard survival game. I love that, you know? So, and I don't think I feel like I emphasize that enough, is that this game is incredible, you know what I mean? But I see so many people who just get into this game, they could just get so turned off over that first like 10 hours of this game. And that's the truth. The first 10 hours of this game is just so overwhelming, and it's a lot. It's just so much, and I just see it turning away so many players, and I can see it scaring off so many new players. So that's one thing that it's not that I really didn't like that the game was so overwhelming in the beginning, it's just I'm scared because it seems like it would turn a lot of players off, and it seems like it probably will turn a lot of players off from this game. So I guess that's the fourth thing I kind of didn't like about this game, is that it is really, really overwhelming in the beginning, you know what I mean? So yeah, I don't want to dawn too much and spend too much time on this final thing, but yeah, I think the game can be a little bit too overwhelming in the beginning, and I think that's generally kind of a problem, because it'll probably turn off a lot of new players. You'll probably get a lot of people who will buy the game and play the first like 2 hours or first hour or so, and then they'll just be like, this is way too complicated, this is way too much, and just end up quitting. And that's what scares me about this game, is that there's people who pick it up, get it on sale, really excited to jump into it, and they've heard great things about it, but it ends up being really, really overwhelming. So this is a thing that I really didn't like about the game, and kind of a warning for anyone who plans on getting into this game, being it can be overwhelming in the beginning, but if you get over that steep learning curve, and if you get over that it just being so overwhelming part of the game, that beginning part, if you just get over that first 8 to 9 hours, I guarantee you, if you love survival games, you're going to have a fantastic time with this game. And that's the honest to God truth, like through and through. So if you can just get over that very overwhelming first 5 to 6 hours, you're going to have a blast with this game. So yeah, just needed to mention that. So that's the final thing I didn't like about this game, just being it can be very, very overwhelming. And I think it'd be really great if the devs could maybe make it a little bit simpler to get into, make it a little bit easier for players just to get into. I'm not saying to make the entire game easy, because again, one of the things I loved about the game was that it was so hard. I loved that, you know, but make it so there's not as much of a steep learning curve. Just make it so the beginning is a little bit more simple. So just so people can wrap their heads around it, because again, I see a lot of people running away or turning away from this game because of how complicated it can be so early on. So while I love that it can be complicated later on, and while I love that it's generally hard later on, I think making it so hard in the beginning, or not really hard, but making it so complicated in the beginning, I think it's going to arise a lot of problems with new players or people who are maybe even potentially new to the genre. So yeah, just really need to emphasize that and really need to get that out of the way. But overall, I really love this game. That's really everything I loved about the game, and that's everything that I didn't like about the game. Yeah, I really don't have much more to say. I think ultimately my emphasis for this game is that while the exploration is kind of boring for the game, ultimately the city building aspects of it, and then the city management building, and then the colony management side of the game is just absolutely incredible, and I absolutely love about this game. So this game's got some bad, but it's also got a lot of good, and it has a heap of potential, and I'm really, really looking forward to what the devs do over the next few years of development. And from the looks of it, as of me recording this, they actually have a brand new update that just released. Apparently, it's quite a big update, so, you know, who knows, maybe I'll have to, like, I was about to say jump back into the game, but, you know, I will jump back into the game. I played it like 2 days ago, so it's not really jumping back into the game, it's just continuing my session. But yeah, this game's got a very, very bright future. It's an absolutely incredible game, and I had a blast with it. Outside of those 3 things I really didn't like about it, this game's great, and it's truly a fantastic survival game. So that's it. Had a great time with this one. I'm going to quit yapping. I want to know, have you guys actually played ASKA? Did you guys have a good time with it? Maybe you're just watching this review to get like a third person perspective. I don't know why people play a game then watch reviews on it, but hey, maybe you're like out there and maybe you did actually like play the game, you know, and you're just looking for a third person perspective. I want to know, if you did actually play the game, did you like it? I really want to know. And I want to know, have I convinced you to buy the game? Because that's ultimately why they gave me the key for this game, to try to convince you to buy the game. And not be biased in my review, because I want to make this ultimately very clear. Again, final thing I really need to make clear is this is not a biased review. I'm being generally honest. This is generally how I feel about the game. I generally really loved this game, you know, and I mean that too. I'm not like, you know, I mean that through and through, you know. Me getting a key for this game did not affect my review for this game at all. Loved it through and through, genuinely. So, yeah. Need to make that clear for legal reasons. For the love of God. No one sue me. I'm being serious. Yeah, but all jokes aside, great game. And honestly, I can't wait to jump back into it, because I know even after this review, I'm going to be clocking a lot more hours than I did, because I clocked like 50 hours into this game. I'm going to be honest with y'all. But yeah, I know I said this before, but that's now actually all I have to say about this game. And yeah, I'm going to edit this, and hopefully this review turned out exceptional. Maybe a little bit longer than what I was hoping, but hopefully it turned out exceptional. I'm going to quit yapping. Want to know, how did you guys feel about the video? Was it good? Anyways, I'm going to quit yapping. I'm going to actually go this time. And yeah, all good. Bye.